Up next on The Reveal, a Metro Atlanta police force arrests one of its own, but then goes after the man who turned the officer in.
Do you see this as retribution against a whistleblower?
Absolutely. He came straight after me.
A small Georgia town is robbed of more than $500,000.
I'm admitting to you, I did wrong.
But you realize how it looks, though, don't you?
Would those responsible ever be brought to justice?
And they didn't give a damn. Evidently, they didn't give a damn.
But it tears you up, literally tears you up. I'm sorry. But it's just like taking a big chunk out of your body.
46 years later, the pain is still unbearable. A heartbroken father wants justice for his little girl. The Reveal begins now with investigators Faith Abube and Brendan Keefe.
Welcome to The Reveal, a show dedicated to life-changing investigations.
A Griffin police officer was completely cleared after his wife was found shot in the head with his duty weapon. But that's just the beginning of the story. In the end, a whistleblower will discover the police don't like it when you try to prove one of their own is breaking the law.
Police department. I smoked and smoked, and I can't get an answer to the door.
A police officer's wife shot in the head the night she was packing up to leave him. The officer's duty weapon found under her unconscious body.
A Glock 40. She would have never done this. I don't know why.
Jessica Boynton was flown to an Atlanta trauma center where her surgeon questioned the report of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Her husband moved out the weeks the young mother was still in a coma. Things that belonged to you disappeared while you were in a coma.
Right.
I mean, these were your things, and while you were in a coma, your husband at the time moved them out of your apartment, right?
He did.
Officer Matthew Boynton was cleared in the shooting months before it was officially ruled an attempted suicide. Jessica filed a complaint with Griffin police after their divorce, alleging Officer Boynton refused to return many of her belongings. They asked you for a statement, but they also asked him for a statement. What did he say?
He said that he didn't have anything.
None of it.
None of it.
Was that true?
No.
Unzip it. It's Jessica stuff.
That's a whistleblower named Will Sanders. He showed up at police headquarters and turned in a gym bag. Inside, dozens of Jessica's things, including her bras and underwear. Sanders showed investigators a cell phone video recorded by Officer Boynton's new girlfriend. She's the one who got Jessica's bag from the officer's storage room so Sanders could turn it in.
I'm sure he's not going to be happy camping when he finds out that bag's missing. Because that right here is about, 5 felonies? Well, I mean, I ain't a rocket scientist. I ain't a lawyer. Well, let me tell you, I'm a truck driver.
Before Will Sanders found this bag, who was investigating this case?
Nobody.
So Will essentially was the self-appointed citizen investigator.
Yes.
And he solved it.
He did.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that?
Officer Boynton was brought in for questioning by his fellow officers.
You wrote a statement saying you didn't have any of our items.
Right. We gave everything back that we had.
Whose bag is that?
Jessica's.
And the contents in the bag?
And it's got all her stuff in it.
I did not have any other items of Jessica's. This is Matthew Boynton. Is that your statement?
Yes, sir.
Is that Matthew?
That's Jessica's bag.
The bag was turned into us. We have possession of the bag that came out of your storage room. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that statement to be accurate and true?
Not now.
Did you believe it then?
No, sir.
Officer Boynton takes off his Griffin police uniform for the last time. Arrested by his own department on 2 felony charges, filing a false statement and violating his oath of office.
But when you knew you had the bag and you didn't do anything about it, man, you put me in a situation where I don't have any other choice.
I'm clear. I'm clear. There's no excuse for it. Here.
How long did it take for the district attorney to bring this to the grand jury?
A year.
A year.
A full year.
For 6 of those months, the Griffin district attorney couldn't find Officer Boynton's oath of office. An ADA told Jessica one of the charges against Griffin's ex-officer and her ex-husband would have to be dropped. It was gone.
It was gone.
This was a felony charge he was facing for violation of oath of office, and that piece of paper vanishes, and so does the charge.
Yep.
A newspaper reporter found a copy on file with the magistrate court one floor directly below the DA's Spalding County office. Then the original was discovered in police evidence. The grand jury comes back with an indictment, right?
No. They came back with a no bill.
No bill.
No bill.
He was completely cleared.
Completely.
How can you have a confession and then not get an indictment?
The Griffin Police Department wasn't done. They had a new target, right?
That's it. It was me.
And what's your Facebook name?
Will Sanders.
Police got a secret search warrant for 7 months' worth of Will Sanders' private Facebook messages. What did they allege was the crime they were investigating to get your private Facebook messages, not only without your permission, but without your knowledge?
They said I was connected to 2 commercial burglaries.
What?
Yep, 2 commercial burglaries.
In what the DA and police department now insist was merely a typo, Griffin police swore before a judge that they needed access to Will Sanders' private messages as part of an unrelated burglary investigation. No one outside of Griffin knew about this shooting before you started asking questions.
Correct.
You filed the first records requests to find out what happened inside that apartment with Matthew Boynton and his now ex-wife.
Yes, correct.
And that led to our investigation, which led to international coverage of this.
Yes.
If they suspect you're the origin of all of this embarrassing news in the Griffin Police Department, that's a pretty strong motive to come after Will Sanders.
Absolutely.
Police Chief Mike Yates replied to Sanders on the official Griffin Police Department Facebook page. The chief promised the fruits of the search warrant would be released upon request to any persons interested in the entire scope of your actions, activities, motives, and history. Do you see this as retribution against a whistleblower?
Absolutely. He came straight after me.
The chief sent this text to the district attorney at 9:23 on a Friday night, asking for special permission to release Sanders' private Facebook messages before the Boynton criminal case went to the grand jury. Are any of us safe from this kind of...
No.
What can a citizen do to protect themselves from this?
0.
So did the chief make good on his promise?
Faith, he did. We got all of Will Sanders' private Facebook messages when we asked for the criminal case file, including some potentially embarrassing nude photos.
Coming up.
I had expectations that there would be a trial.
What did happen?
There was no trial.
Our investigation reveals how the justice system failed taxpayers of a struggling small town. A small Georgia town is missing more than $500,000. Its former mayor and city clerk were charged in connection with its disappearance, but recently a judge dismissed the case 8 years after their indictments. Tonight on The Reveal, we uncover how the justice system failed taxpayers in the struggling small town.
Well, Broxton is a good place to live. Just have a few problems with a few people that live here, that's all.
If a town could show you its scars of mistreatment and abuse, these would be Broxton's. It's a poor single traffic light town with just over 1,000 residents, once led by longtime mayor Bobby Reynolds.
Bobby was like a kingpin around here.
Broxton resident Hal Presley is a vocal critic of Reynolds and blames the mayor for the town's financial struggle. In 2006, an auditor uncovered someone at City Hall embezzled $569,000, enough money to pay all 10 city employees for more than a year and a half.
That's an awful lot of money for this town, a lot of money. He's supposed to have the oversight of whatever's going on.
The audit also discovered Broxton's former city clerk, Tracy Lott, played a part. It found she overpaid herself $36,000. In 2010, an investigator with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation interviewed Lott about the missing money. Listen to what GBI investigator Chad Lott told the city clerk what he believed happened.
I think you knew this audit was going on. You knew you weren't going to have a job. I think you took advantage of the situation and wrote yourself a few extra payroll checks and wrote them down as vacation.
Lott admits to lying about where she kept some checks and to overpaying herself more than she should, but disagreed on the amount and said it was an accident. Lott eventually turns over $80,000 in uncashed checks.
I mean, I did wrong, okay? I'm admitting to you. I did wrong.
But you realize how it looks, though, don't you?
Yeah.
When you're making all this money,
Yes.
you made more money the last year and a half you worked there,
Yeah.
and you knew you wouldn't be working as much longer. Oh.
That's right. I realize every bit of it. But as far as stealing, no, I don't.
If she wrote checks and she was not entitled to them, then she stole them. And I would think that would be enough to prosecute her.
In 2010, a Coffee County grand jury agreed and indicted Lott and Reynolds for their involvement in the missing money. Lott charged with felony theft and to lying to law enforcement. Reynolds essentially charged with failing to monitor city finances. This might be a good time to tell you Lott is the mayor's daughter.
I had expectations that there would be a trial.
For years, Presley waited, wrote letters to the DA requesting updates. He even met with the GBI investigator.
He acted like he didn't give up about what was going on over here.
This past March, an attorney for Lott and Reynolds filed a motion to dismiss the charges for violating their right to a speedy trial. The judge agreed and tossed out the case 8 years after their indictment.
But these people are in higher places than I am, and they didn't give a damn. Evidently, they didn't give a damn.
Presley isn't the only one upset. Some of the 21 grand jury members who heard the evidence and indicted the mayor and his daughter tell 11 Alive they were surprised too.
It's like a waste of our time, taxpayers' time, and both for the Reynolds Lott families and the judicial system. It failed us all.
Rick Curry was the district attorney at the time.
You have a daughter of a mayor admitting to not cashing checks, to overpaying herself, to lying to GBI. Why not take this to trial?
I don't remember. I remember that I was gearing up for trial, and then something happened, and I don't remember what that was.
I don't understand how he would not remember something like that.
While Curry doesn't recall why he didn't take it to trial, he does remember getting a conviction would have been difficult because the audit identified years of missing financial paperwork.
The word keeps coming back to my mind is FUBAR, fouled up beyond all recognition.
What do you say to those grand jurors that took the time to hear the evidence, they believed that this should go to trial, and it never did?
I would tell them that I did everything I could to get it there.
I think that response is puzzling, that he did everything he could, and without being able to document what else he did do following the grand jury indictment.
Kay Levine is an Emory law professor and former prosecutor.
When cases drag on, what we end up seeing is a very favorable plea deal for the defendant because the prosecutor's case has gotten weaker over time. So that may well be very good for the defendant, may not be in the interests of society.
The former mayor and his daughter still live in Broxton. They declined multiple interview requests. And for now, no one will be held accountable for Broxton's missing money.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So the mayor and his daughter declined any interviews about this, but do you know their reaction to the case being dismissed?
I spoke to Mr. Reynolds briefly on the phone, and he says having this indictment over his and his daughter's head all these years really ruined their reputation, and they also denied any involvement in the missing money.
Up next on The Reveal.
Whoever was involved in this is a psychopath. When Debbie took her last breath, she was looking into the face of a monster.
A monster who's haunted authorities for nearly 5 decades. But will new DNA evidence finally bring a killer to justice? A little girl kidnapped, raped, and murdered in a case that has stumped investigators for more than 40 years. But now, armed with new DNA evidence, police in Cobb County are taking another look.
And tonight, we wanted to show how Debbie Lynn Randall died from a new perspective, her own.
Parents wait by telephone.
Debbie Lynn Randall's father still has every newspaper article written about her disappearance.
Clues still lacking in Deborah's slaying.
He even has the front page picture of his little girl's body being carried out of the woods. She was only 9 years old.
But it tears you up, literally tears you up. I'm sorry, but it's just like taking a big chunk out of your body.
John Randall fears he will die without ever knowing who took that chunk. Debbie Lynn's mother died of leukemia last month. This is where Debbie Lynn was last seen alive. Today, it's a bus terminal. But we hired a graphic artist to help us understand what it looked like on January 13th, 1972. At that time, Debbie Lynn's family lived in an apartment complex on one side of the street, and the laundromat where she was abducted sat on the other.
I think it was like 57 feet from her front door to the laundromat.
The 57 feet was all Debbie Lynn's kidnapper needed. Her mother found the box of soap she tried to bring home scattered on the ground. Detective Morris Nix was a teen when it happened.
I remember vividly, I came in the house, it was on the news. People were afraid, they were angry, and it was frightening.
Debbie Lynn loved dolls, and since this is her story, that is how we portray her.
I don't know that I'll ever look at a Barbie doll again that I don't think about her.
Nix is a man in a dark 1950s pickup truck grabbed Debbie Lynn and forced her into it. There was an eyewitness.
I know she was kicking and screaming.
Sandra Walker was 12 years old at the time. She didn't want to talk on camera, but says she remembers almost getting run over by the man as he sped away. And she says she can still feel his eyes looking back at her through the rearview mirror.
Her brother was at the store handing out flyers, if you had seen her, that she had come up missing. And that's when I put two and two together.
And she still carries the heartache of what happened that day.
I've had people say that you got to let it go, and I can't. I mean, that little girl didn't deserve any. She deserved to have a life.
Debbie Lynn was found 16 days later during a mass search of the woods. It was cold and rainy.
She was abducted in one area, attacked in another area, redressed, and then her body was taken to even another area on Johnson Ferry Road.
Police say Debbie Lynn had been found raped and suffocated. The killer likely using her own coat to muffle her screams. Nick still visits her grave.
Whoever was involved in this is a psychopath. When Debbie took her last breath, she was looking into the face of a monster.
When Nix volunteered for the Cobb County Cold Case Unit, he asked to work on Debbie Lynn's case. He's determined to do what police 46 years ago could not: find her killer.
I still think that it's possible to solve this case.
Marietta police had preserved the evidence well, and for the first time, investigators have a DNA profile. The suspect, a white male.
I don't even think about it.
Debbie Lynn's father has no words for the man that killed his daughter, but overflows with emotion, knowing she has not been forgotten.
I loved her. I'll always love her.
Such an emotional and powerful story. The artwork that you saw, we have actually taken those drawings and we have turned it into a graphic novel. And what's really exciting is that if you go to your 11 Alive app right now on your phone, you can see the graphic novel as well. We've also posted it online.
This artist has done such an amazing job. Do we know any more about the killer?
Police believe that he was a construction worker. They think that because of the type of truck he was driving, as well as some of the dirt that was found on her clothes.
And Rebecca, what about that DNA evidence? Any luck?
So far, the DNA has not led them to the killer, but it has helped them rule out several suspects. They say what they need now are some new leads to chase, and they are hoping that this helps trigger some of those memories.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
You've been watching The Reveal, a show fueled by investigations that have an impact.
We'll see you next week on The Reveal.